Okay, let's discuss this in more depth now with Steve Fowler, who's an automotive editor and consultant. He joins me live from London. Great to have you on, Steve. So, it's understandable. High fuel prices, you see a move towards EV adoption. But unlike markets and oil prices, am I right in thinking this is less likely actually to recede? That once people make that move, it tends to stick?
Yeah, I think we're seeing something very different happen this time around. We've seen it in the past. Of course, price is the biggest factor in when people are buying cars, and that's not only purchase price, but running costs. And when we've seen fuel crises in the past, when prices have risen, people move towards electric cars. But as you say, I think it's slightly different this time because people are more aware of the, should we call it the electric vehicle infrastructure, the ecosystem around electric vehicles, and particularly what I call personal energy security. You know, people are aware that they are at the mercy of politicians, of governments, of doing things that are going to affect their living costs. And we're not only seeing a huge rise in electric vehicle sales and interest. One company in the UK was reporting an 89% increase in orders. Renault, for example, I spoke to them recently, 24% up in inquiries. I was with Polestar yesterday, a 40% increase in electric vehicle test drives. But we're also seeing a huge increase in things like solar panels and batteries. So people are aware of their own energy security and how they can act to avoid these huge variations in particularly in fuel prices.
In terms of where car makers put their focus in the future, how would you assess the battle at the moment between the electric vehicle manufacturers and the old, petrol-driven cars? Who's winning this battle?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one because I think the car industry went too fast too soon towards electrification. I think they would probably admit that. They were probably badly advised as well. They were ahead of the curve, certainly ahead of consumer demand and consumer willingness to accept EVs. That's changing now, but it's changing just as a lot of car makers were thinking, hang on a second, the EV market isn't moving as fast as we perhaps thought it was. So let's move perhaps towards new energy vehicles, a phrase coined by the Chinese car makers, which is plug-in hybrids in particular. But I think, the market is very dynamic. It moves very quickly. Thankfully, the market is ready to move to all electric. And I think the consumer is far more ready. At the same time as we're seeing better cars with longer ranges and crucially lower prices. These sub €20,000 cars are pretty commonplace now, and there are more and more coming to market.
For EV manufacturers, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes when you get quick success, it can bring problems. So you've got the problem with places to actually charge your car. Can the power grids in Europe handle a sudden rise in electric vehicles? Are they able to accommodate such an increase?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it depends where you are. There are different stories in different countries across Europe. Some countries are doing great stuff in terms of the charging infrastructure, but not everybody has home charging. If you have home charging, you can benefit from low rates, really low rates to charge your car. But people do rely on the charging infrastructure. Certainly in the UK, there are almost twice as many electric car charging points as fuel pumps. And again, in the UK, there's a new electric car charging point opening every 30 minutes or so. So it is growing. That is still a concern. But I think people are really looking at electric cars now purely because of that cost saving. And I think it's a long-term thing now. I always say people who are buying a car will always think about going electric. They may dismiss it very quickly, but these days they're just not dismissing it and they're actually going for it.
Yeah, potentially a pivotal moment in the industry. Great to get your analysis, Steve. Steve Fowler, automotive editor and consultant. Thank you.